I'm not ashamed.
What nations were to be excluded from the assembly of the Lord, and why? This is the question that we seek to answer today as we continue our verse-by-verse study of the book of Deuteronomy on Walking Through the Bible.
His word, the glory of his cross.
If you have a Bible with you, you can turn to Deuteronomy 23. We're going to be reading from verses 1 to 8. If you don't have a Bible, don't worry. Just follow along with us on the screen. The version that we'll be reading from is the New King James Version. So Deuteronomy 23, beginning at verse 1. He who is emasculated by crushing or mutilation shall not enter the assembly of the Lord. One of illegitimate birth shall not enter the assembly of the Lord. Even to the 10th generation, none of his descendants shall enter the assembly of the Lord. An Ammonite or a Moabite shall not enter the assembly of the Lord. Even to the 10th generation, none of his descendants shall enter the assembly of the Lord forever, because they did not meet with you with bread and water on the road when you came out of Egypt, and because they hired against you Balaam the son of Beor from Pethor of Mesopotamia to curse you. Nevertheless, the Lord your God would not listen to Balaam, but the Lord your God turned the curse into a blessing for you, because the Lord your God loves you. You shall not seek their peace, nor their prosperity all your days forever. You shall not abhor an Edomite, for he is your brother. You shall not abhor an Egyptian, because you are an alien in his land. The children of the 3rd generation born to them may enter the assembly of the Lord. After having dealt with issues of harlotry and rape, Moses turns in chapter 23 to the issue of citizenship in Israel. It is a common practice today that someone can gain citizenship at birth 2 ways: automatically through their parents or automatically through the place of their birth. Some countries practice one of these 2 methods, while others practice only one, but this is generally how someone gains citizenship at birth. One could also be naturalized into a country by going through the legal process of obtaining citizenship. Each country has their own rules on how to do so, but most countries allow people to gain citizenship, though all do not. In Israel, under the law of Moses, being in the assembly of the Lord granted you certain civic rights, such as the ability to occupy certain offices among the people, such as a magistrate or a judge. If you were of the house of Aaron, it enabled you to be a priest of God. And it also gave you inheritance rights and the right to have your name included in the genealogical tables. Generally speaking, someone born to parents of the children of Israel, as long as they were circumcised, if they were males, were added to the assembly of the Lord. However, there would be exceptions to those rules. The first set of people that would be excluded from the assembly of the Lord were those males who had been emasculated or had their sexual members mutilated. What is being talked about here is purposeful emasculation, as it was common among the ancients for the priests of many pagan deities to be eunuchs, and for parents in the East, for various reasons, to mutilate their children with a view of training them for service in the houses of those who were great. Such was not to be a practice in Israel, and if such occurred, those people would not be allowed to enter the assembly of the Lord. Now it is evident from the story of the Ethiopian eunuch in Acts 8 that these people could become proselytes or converts to the law of Moses, but they wouldn't become part of the assembly of the Lord simply by living in Israel. Verse 2 deals with the next excluded group, those of illegitimate birth. The word used here for illegitimate birth is used only in one other place in the Old Testament, Zechariah 9 verse 6, and it came to mean those born out of sexual relationships from incest and adultery, not simply children being born to parents out of wedlock, as we generally view the term illegitimate children to mean today. Children born illegitimately were to be excluded from the assembly of the Lord, even to the 10th generation. Now there are a couple of views as to what is meant here. The phrase could be speaking symbolically, and since the number 10 used in this way means completeness, this would mean complete exclusion from the assembly of the Lord. However, it could also be taken literally, meaning that children born illegitimately couldn't have their descendants taken into the assembly of the Lord until the 10th generation. Based on how this phrase was applied in Nehemiah 13, 1-3 to the Moabites and Ammonites, it appears that the symbolic usage was meant here. However, we cannot be sure for certain, and since this law isn't our law today, pressing the issue one way or another is unnecessary, as it doesn't apply to us. The third group that was to be excluded from the assembly of the Lord was the Moabite and Ammonite. The same duration, even to the 10th generation, was given, but the word forever was also added. The use of the word forever lends more credence to the conclusion that 10th generation is being used symbolically to mean complete exclusion, as God would be defining what the term means here. The reason for the exclusion was not because God is racist, but because Moab and Ammon had not provided Israel with bread and water when they came through their lands towards Canaan, and then they hired Balaam to curse Israel so that Israel could be defeated. Now, from our study of Numbers, it is only said that the Moabites and Midianites did this, but by their inclusion here we get the idea that the Ammonites were involved as well. Now, just like it was with the eunuchs in verse 1, this does not exclude Moabites or Ammonites from becoming proselytes in Israel, for we will see Ruth the Moabite become a proselyte in the book of Ruth. It does prevent, though, a Moabite or an Ammonite man marrying an Israelite woman and passing on Israelite citizenship to their children. The fourth group mentioned is that of the Edomite and the Egyptian. Unlike with the other groups mentioned, these nations would not be totally excluded from the assembly of Israel, but would only be excluded for a time, to the 3rd generation, meaning the 3rd generation could enter the assembly of the Lord. Used here literally or symbolically would carry with it the same meaning, that these nations wouldn't be totally excluded. The reason for Edom is that they are Israel's brother, Edom being descended from Esau, Jacob's brother. And the reason for Egypt was because Israel was a stranger in their land. Yes, both nations had done evil to Israel at some point in time, but there was stronger reasons to only partially exclude them, rather than completely exclude them. With that, our time is up for today. The Lord willing, we hope you'll join us for tomorrow's discussion of Deuteronomy chapter 23, verses 9 to 14, as we continue our walk through the Bible, one verse at a time.
Thank you for watching today's episode. We hope that you found it edifying and ask that you not only subscribe to our channel and podcast, but that you like and share this episode among your friends, so that the saving gospel of Jesus Christ can go out to the whole world.
Of his cross.